Sri Bhagavanuvāca idam tu te guhyatamam tavakshāmyanasūyave jnanam vijnānasahitam yajñātva mokshase shrunāt shubhat jnātva mokshase shubhat. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "My dear Arjuna, because you are never envious of me, I shall impart to you this most confidential knowledge and realization, knowing which you shall be relieved of the miseries of material existence." Purport. As a devotee hears more and more about the Supreme Lord, he becomes enlightened. This hearing process is recommended in the Srimad Bhagavatam. The messages of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are full of potencies, and these potencies can be realized if topics regarding the Supreme Godhead are discussed among devotees. This cannot be achieved by the association of mental speculators of academic scholars, for it is realized knowledge. The devotee are constantly engaged in the Supreme Lord's service. The Lord understands the mentality and sincerity of particular living entity who is engaged in Krishna consciousness and gives him the intelligence to understand the science of Krishna consciousness. Science of Krishna in the association of devotees. Discussion of Krishna is very potent, and if a fortunate person has such associates and tries to assimilate the knowledge, then he will surely make advancement towards spiritual realization. Lord Krishna, in order to encourage Arjuna to higher and higher elevation in his potent service, describes in his 9th chapter matters more confidential than any he has already disclosed. The very beginning of Bhagavad Gita, the first chapter, is more or less an introduction to the rest of the book. And in the second and third chapters, the spiritual knowledge described is called confidential. Topics discussed in the 7th and 8th chapters are especially related to devotional service, and because they bring enlightenment in Krishna consciousness, they are called more confidential. But the matters which are described in the 9th chapter deal with unalloyed pure devotion. Therefore, this is called the most confidential. One who is situated in the most confidential knowledge of Krishna is naturally transcendental. He therefore has no material pangs, although he is in the material world. In the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, it is said that although one who has a sincere desire to render loving service to the Supreme Lord is situated in the conditional state of material existence, he is to be considered liberated. Similarly, we shall find in the Bhagavad Gita 10th chapter that anyone who is engaged in that way is a liberated person. Now, this verse has specific significance. The word idam jnanam, this knowledge, refer to pure devotional service, which consists of 9 different activities: hearing, chanting, remembering, serving, worshipping, praying, obeying, maintaining friendship, and surrendering everything. By the practice of these 9 elements of devotional service, one is elevated to spiritual consciousness, Krishna consciousness. When one's heart is thus cleared of material contamination, one can understand the science of Krishna. Simply to understand that a living entity is not material is not sufficient. That may be the beginning of spiritual realization, but one should recognize the difference between activities of the body and the spiritual activities of one who understands that he is not the body. In the 7th chapter, we have already discussed the opulent potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. His different energies, the inferior and superior natures, and all this material manifestation. Now, in chapter 9, the glories of the Lord will be delineated. delineated. The Sanskrit word anasuyave in this verse is also very significant. Generally, the commentators, even if they are highly scholarly, are all envious of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Even the most erudite scholar writes on Bhagavad Gita very accurately because they are envious of Krishna. Their commentaries are useless. The commentaries given by devotees of the Lord are bona fide. No one can explain Bhagavad Gita or give perfect knowledge of Krishna if he is envious. One who criticizes the character of Krishna without knowing him is a fool. So much commentaries should be very carefully avoided. For one who understands that Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead, the pure and transcendental personality, these chapters will be very beneficial.
Hare Krishna. Raja Vidya Rajaguhyam Pavitram Idam Uttamam Pratyaksha Vagamam Dharmyam Sushukam Kartum Avyayam. This knowledge is the king of education, the most secret of all the secrets. It is the purest knowledge, and because it gives direct perception of the self by realization, it is the perfection of religion. It is everlasting and it is joyfully performed. The chapter of Bhagavad Gita, this chapter of Bhagavad Gita is called the King of Education because it is the essence of all doctrines and philosophies explained before. Among the principal philosophers in India are Gautama, Kannada, Kapila, Kannada, Yajnavalkya, Sandilya, and Vaishvanara. And finally, there is Vyasadeva, the author of Vedanta Sutra. So there is no dearth of knowledge in the field of philosophy of transcendental knowledge. Now the Lord says that this ninth chapter is the king of all such knowledge. The essence of all knowledge that can be derived from the study of the Vedas and different kind of philosophies. It is the most confidential because confidential or transcendental knowledge involves understanding the difference between the soul and the body. And the king of all confidential knowledge culminates in devotional service. Generally, people are not educated in this confidential knowledge, they are educated in external knowledge. As far as ordinary education is concerned, people are involved with so many departments: politics, sociology, physics, chemistry, mathematics, astronomy, etc. There are so many departments of knowledge all over the world and many huge universities, but there is unfortunately no university or educational institution where the sciences of the spirit, soul is instructed. Yet, the soul is the most important part of the body. Without the presence of the soul, the body has no value. Still, people are placing great stress on the bodily necessities, not caring for the vital soul. The Bhagavad Gita, especially from the second chapter on, stresses the importance of the soul. In the very beginning, the Lord says that this body is perishable and that the soul is not perishable. Antavantaime deha nityashoktah sharirana. This is the confidential part of knowledge. Simply knowing that the spirit soul is different from this body and that its nature is immutable, indestructible, and eternal. But that gives no positive information about the soul. Sometimes people are under impression that the soul is different from the body and that when the body is finished and one is liberated from the body, the soul remains in a void and becomes impersonal. But actually, that is not a fact. How can the soul, which is so active within the body, be inactive after being liberated from the body? It is always active. If it is eternal, then it is eternally active, and its activities in the spiritual kingdom are the most confidential part of spiritual knowledge. These activities of the spirit soul are therefore indicated here as constituting the king of all knowledge, the most confidential part of all knowledge. This knowledge is the purest form of all activities as explained in Vedic literature. In Padma Purana, man's sinful activities have been analyzed and are shown to be the results of sin after sin. Those who are engaged in fruitive activities are entangled in different stages and forms sinful reactions. For instance, when the seed a particular tree is sown, when the seed of a particular tree is sown, the tree does not appear immediately to grow. It takes some time. It is first a small sprouting plant, then it assumes a form of tree, then it flowers and bears fruits, and when it is complete, the fruits and flowers are enjoyed by persons who have shown the seed of the tree. Similarly, a man performs a sinful act, and like a seed, it takes time to fructify. There are different stages. The sinful action may have already stopped within the individual, but the results of the fruit of that sinful action are still to be enjoyed. These are the sins which are still in the form of seed, and which there are others which are already fructified and are giving us fruits which are enjoying as distress and pain. As explained in the 28th verse of the 7th chapter, a person who has completely endured the reactions of sinful activities and who is engaged in pious activities, being freed from the duality of this material world, becomes engaged in devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna. In other words, those who are actually engaged in devotional service of the Supreme Lord are already freed from all reactions. This statement is confirmed in the Padma Purana. Aprara, aprara,
Prarabdha
aprarabdha
phalam
phalam
papam
papam kutham bijam falonmukam
palam
pramenaiva pralayetha Vishnu
praliyate.
bhakti rathatmanam. For those who are engaged in the devotional service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, all sinful reactions, whether fructified in the stalk or in the form of seed, gradually vanish. Therefore, purifying potency of devotional service is very strong, and it is called Pavitram Uttamam, the purest. Uttama means transcendental. Tamas means this material world or darkness. And Uttama means that which is transcendental to material activities. Devotional activities are never to be considered material, although sometimes it appears that the devotees are engaged like ordinary men. One who can see and is familiar with the devotional service will know that they are not material activities. They are spiritual and devotional, uncontaminated by the material modes of nature.
I think we'll
It is
stop
said
here.
that, okay.
So it's a very long purport. We'll continue. Okay,
Gita.
just mark it and then we'll do it.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, Hare Krishna, yes.
Hare Krishna.